There is something happening in your home right now that you have completely missed. Your female cat is not just sitting there. She is reading you, studying you, filing away every single thing you do into a mental archive you will never have access to. And the most unsettling part? She has been doing this since the first day she arrived. Most people spend years living with a female cat and never once understand what is actually going on behind those eyes. They think she is moody. They think she is unpredictable. They think she just does not care. But that is not moodiness. That is strategy. And today, that strategy gets exposed. Here is what nobody prepares you for when you bring a female cat home. You assume you are the one in control. You feed her, you set the rules, you decide where she sleeps. But within days, sometimes within hours, the dynamic has already shifted in a direction you did not choose. She has already mapped your schedule. She already knows which sounds mean you are about to leave, which movements mean food is coming, and exactly how long she needs to stare at you before you give in. If you have ever caught yourself doing something you did not plan to do because your cat was looking at you a certain way, you already know what I mean. The question is not whether she is influencing you. The question is how deep it goes. And the answer, backed by actual research, is going to change how you see her completely. By the end of this video, you are going to understand 9 things about your female cat that most cat owners never learn. Not guesses, not folk wisdom. Actual findings from behavioral research, veterinary science, and animal cognition studies. And more importantly, you are going to walk away with real, specific things you can do differently starting today. Things that will make her calmer, more trusting, and more connected to you. But before we get into all of that, there is one thing I want you to hold on to as you watch. Everything she does has a reason. Every behavior, every signal, every moment of distance or closeness. Once you understand the reason, nothing about her will ever seem random again. Let us start with something that surprises almost everyone. The way a female cat processes the world around her is physically different from a male cat, not just behaviorally, neurologically. A study published in Animal Behavior by researchers at Queen's University Belfast found consistent differences in how male and female cats use their brains to interact with their environment. One of the clearest expressions of this difference shows up in something you can actually test yourself. Watch which paw your cat uses first when she reaches for something. Drops a toy into a narrow glass or container and see what happens. Female cats overwhelmingly favor their right paw. Males tend to go left. This is called lateralization, and it reflects how each hemisphere of the brain dominates in processing information. What this means in practical terms is that your female cat may be more detail-oriented, more deliberate, and more context-sensitive in how she responds to things. She is not reacting. She is evaluating, and she usually takes her time before deciding what to do next. That deliberateness shows up everywhere once you know to look for it. It shows up in the way she enters a room, the way she watches before approaching, the way she will sit perfectly still for long stretches, eyes scanning, ears rotating, tail barely moving. Researchers from the University of Lincoln found that female cats consistently scored higher than males in behavioral assessments of environmental vigilance. She is not zoning out when she sits at the top of the stairs and stares into the living room. She is monitoring. She is maintaining awareness of every variable in her territory. And her territory, just to be clear, is your entire home, not a corner of it, not the spots where her bed and bowl are, the whole space. Every doorway, every sound, every new smell that drifts under the front door. She tracks all of it, because in her wiring, that is what a female cat does. Now here is where it gets really interesting. That territorial awareness is not just a personality quirk. It has deep evolutionary roots. Studies of feral cat colonies have shown that the social structure of wild cats is built around females. The females are the ones who establish and defend territory. They're the ones who decide which cats are allowed to stay and which are pushed out. Males in feral colonies tend to live more loosely, moving through territories rather than holding them. So when your female cat acts like she owns the place, she does. From her biological perspective, she is the colony manager, and you, along with everyone else in the household, are part of her group. That is not dominance for the sake of control. That is responsibility. She is doing what her instincts have been shaped over thousands of years to do. And that brings us to something that changes the moment you truly understand it: the way she connects with people. Think about this. If you have noticed that your cat seems to prefer one person in the house over everyone else, you are not imagining it. Research into feline social bonding shows that female cats tend to form fewer but significantly stronger social attachments than males. Males are generally more socially flexible. Females are more selective. In feral colonies, females maintain tight relationships with a small number of preferred companions, usually relatives, and those bonds are durable. They persist through stress, change, and disruption. Inside your home, that same pattern plays out. When a female cat decides that you are her person, that is not a casual preference. That is a commitment that she does not extend easily or quickly. It has to be earned. And interestingly, it can be lost if trust is broken consistently enough. So how does she decide who to trust? This is where it gets subtle. She is not responding primarily to who feeds her, though that matters. She is responding to consistency, predictability, emotional steadiness. If you are the person in the home who moves calmly, speaks at a moderate volume, and does not force interaction on her timeline, she will gravitate toward you. Not because you are dominant, because you feel safe. Drop a comment below if your cat has a favorite person in the house and whether or not it surprised you when you figured out who it was. The answers are always fascinating. Let us go deeper now, because one of the most misunderstood things about female cats is not how they bond. It is how they communicate, specifically how they use scent. Every time your cat rubs her face against the corner of a wall, the leg of a chair, your ankle, the edge of your laptop, she is doing something precise and intentional. She has scent glands in her cheeks, her chin, and along her jawline. When she rubs these areas against objects, she deposits pheromones, chemical signals that are completely invisible to you but deeply meaningful to her. These signals do not just mark territory in the aggressive sense. Research has shown that feline facial pheromones have a genuinely calming effect. When a cat is surrounded by her own scent markers, her stress levels are measurably lower. Her environment feels known, safe, controlled. Here is the practical piece that most people get wrong. When you clean aggressively, especially with strongly scented products, you erase those markers, and she has to start over. If you have ever noticed your cat going on a rubbing spree after you have deep cleaned the house, that is exactly what is happening. She is not being dramatic. She is restoring her sense of security, one facial rub at a time. So when you clean, try to leave at least some of her frequently marked spots alone. Or, if you need to clean a surface, give her a day or two before touching the adjacent areas. This is a tiny adjustment that can make a significant difference in how settled she feels. Now I need to tell you about something that most cat owners do not learn until it is too late, and it is the thing I want you to pay the most attention to in this entire video. Female cats are extraordinarily good at hiding pain, not just discomfort, actual pain. This is not a personality thing. It is a survival mechanism that runs so deep it is essentially hardwired. In the wild, a cat who shows weakness attracts danger. Predators notice. Rival cats notice. So, over generations, cats developed the ability to suppress visible signs of suffering. They keep eating. They keep grooming. They keep moving around the house as if everything is fine, because everything needs to appear fine. Female cats may carry this instinct even more intensely because, in a colony, the females carry the survival of the group. A mother cat who appears weak is a mother cat whose kittens are in danger, so she pushes through. She does not show it. The devastating consequence of this in a domestic setting is that by the time a female cat shows clear, obvious signs of being unwell, she has often been suffering for days, sometimes weeks. The signs you need to watch for are not dramatic. They are quiet. A subtle change in posture, a reluctance to jump that was not there before, grooming habits that have shifted slightly, eyes that seem just a little bit different in shape or expression, the way she distributes her weight when she sits. These are the signals, and they require you to pay the kind of attention that most people never think to give. Keep a mental note, or even a written one, of your cat's normal baseline. how she sits, how high she jumps, how often she grooms each part of her body. Because when something changes, even slightly, that is information, and catching it early can make an enormous difference. Here is something that connects to that hidden pain in a way that might surprise you. Female cats have neural pathways that are associated with caregiving and protective behavior. Specifically, areas of the hypothalamus that are more active in females and are linked to nurturing responses. And these circuits do not require kittens to switch on. They can be triggered by anyone in the cat's environment who seems vulnerable or unwell. If you have ever been sick and noticed that your cat suddenly became unusually attentive, staying closer than normal, purring more, watching you from a short distance, that was not coincidence. Her caregiving instincts had activated. From her perspective, you were a member of her group who needed monitoring. She was doing her job, and if you pushed her away during those moments, she likely interpreted that as rejection from someone she was trying to protect. Before we get to the final piece of this, I want to ask you something. If you have made it this far in this video, you are clearly the kind of person who takes your cat's well-being seriously. That matters more than most people realize, because the quality of a cat's inner life is almost entirely shaped by the quality of attention the people around her pay. So if this is landing for you, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. There is a lot more to explore, and the next video might be the one that changes everything about how you and your cat relate to each other. Now, the last thing, and this is the one that tends to hit people the hardest when they really sit with it. Your female cat has a hormonal reality that, if she is unspayed, is genuinely difficult to live through. Female cats are induced ovulators. Unlike most mammals, they do not release eggs on a biological schedule. Ovulation only occurs after mating, which means that an unspayed female who has never mated may cycle in and out of heat repeatedly, sometimes every 2 to 3 weeks during breeding season. Each cycle brings a flood of hormones that drive her to vocalize intensely, rub compulsively against surfaces, pace, and in some cases appear genuinely distressed. This is not behavioral. This is physiological, and for some cats, it is uncomfortable in a way that is hard to watch. Spaying eliminates this cycle entirely, and for indoor cats especially, many veterinarians consider it one of the most significant quality of life improvements available. Not just for population control, for her, because the hormonal swings stop, the physical discomfort stops, and in many cases, her overall temperament becomes calmer and more consistent. If you have been on the fence about this, talk to your vet. Ask specifically about how repeated heat cycles affect stress hormones and long-term health. The research on this is clear, and it is worth having that conversation. So here is where we land. Your female cat is not a mystery. She is a deeply wired, biologically sophisticated creature who is doing exactly what her nature asks her to do. She is managing her territory, monitoring her group, building selective trust, communicating through scent, hunting with precision, and concealing vulnerability because that is what kept her ancestors alive. None of it is random. None of it is personal in the way we sometimes take it. It is all purposeful. And when you understand the purpose, something shifts. You stop trying to change her behavior and start working with it. You create the conditions that make her feel safe, seen, and secure. And in return, she gives you something that very few animals on Earth will give a human being. Genuine, chosen loyalty. Not trained, not coerced, freely given. That is worth understanding. That is worth protecting. And if today you learned even one thing that changes how you see her, then this was the right video to watch.